Ever get caught in one of those, unexpected downpours?
Mhm.
The kind where your weather app swore those are just, like, dark clouds?
Mm.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. It's 2024, right? And we rely on having good weather info, probably more than ever. But honestly, the truth is, sometimes those traditional forecasts can feel a little, how do I put this?
Uh-huh.
Last century.
Kind of like trying to navigate by the stars in the age of GPS.
Exactly. But what if I told you there's this company out there, and they're trying to really shake things up? And I'm not just talking about, like, a slightly better designed weather app. I'm talking about a whole new way of looking at the skies, understanding what's going on up there.
It's about time.
Right. So today, we're taking a deep dive into tomorrow.io. Now, these guys, they've got their hands in a lot of different things weather-related. They've got this resilience platform for businesses to deal with weather risks. There's a weather API for developers. Oh, and of course, they've got their consumer apps, too. But the real story here, the thing that really caught our eye, they're talking about launching a whole network of microwave sounder satellites.
Now, that's what I call thinking big.
No kidding. So we're going to break down exactly what that means, why it's a big deal, and whether tomorrow.io might actually be sitting on the future of forecasting. Ready to decode some weather science.
Let's do it.
All right, so microwave sounder satellites. Sounds pretty high-tech. What exactly are we talking about here?
Okay, so the technology itself, it's called passive microwave radiometry. Now, I know that probably sounds a little intimidating, but stay with me.
I'm trying.
Think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to figure out what's cooking in a restaurant kitchen,
Okay.
but you're outside just listening.
So, like, trying to identify the spices by smell.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Except in this case, instead of smells, these satellites are picking up on faint microwave signals that naturally radiate from the Earth's atmosphere.
They're eavesdropping on the weather.
You got it. They're basically listening in on these little telltale heat signatures that tell us what's happening up there.
So it's not just about knowing if it's going to rain, but really understanding what's going on in the atmosphere, those different layers, and how they're all interacting.
Exactly. These microwave signals, they can actually see through clouds, which is something that traditional weather radar has always struggled with.
Makes sense.
And they're not just picking up on temperature. They're also gathering data on water vapor, which is like the secret ingredient when you're trying to predict precipitation.
Like how much rain we can actually expect, not just whether or not it might sprinkle a little.
Precisely. And here's the really cool part. They're doing all of this with these incredibly compact satellites called CubeSats.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those. Those are like the mini fridges of spacecraft, right?
That's a great way to put it. Small but mighty.
So we're talking like shoebox-sized satellites.
Even smaller. We're talking 6U CubeSats. Each one weighs only about 12 kilograms.
Wow.
But here's the kicker. Each one of these little guys has a scanning range of 2,200 kilometers.
Wait, seriously? That means one satellite can cover. What is that? Like an area the size of Texas?
You got it.
2,200 kilometers. That's pretty impressive coverage for something the size of, a shoebox.
It's a whole new ballgame.
So it's not just about the size, though, right?
Yeah.
I remember in the materials they were talking about these satellites launching like way faster than the traditional ones. What's the advantage there? Why does that matter so much?
You're hitting on a really crucial point here.
Lay it on me.
In weather, it's all about speed. It always has been. The faster you can get that data from space down to Earth, the faster you can update those forecasting models. And most importantly, the faster you can get that critical information to the people who need it most.
Yeah, makes sense.
And because tomorrow.io is using these smaller, more agile CubeSats, they can kind of like navigate that whole launch process a lot quicker than, say, a traditional weather agency with their much larger, much more complex satellites.
So it's less about building like one giant, weather forecasting behemoth in space,
Okay.
and more about sending up like a whole fleet of these smaller, kind of nimbler data collectors.
Exactly. Think of it like this: sending a message by carrier pigeon
Okay.
versus, firing off a text.
Got it. Speed is key.
Exactly. Especially when we're talking about things like, rapidly developing storms or, maybe some other kind of extreme weather event where every minute really counts.
Absolutely. So we've got these mini satellites up there. They're gathering all this like really detailed atmospheric data, and they're doing it crazy fast.
Yeah.
How does all of this tie back to tomorrow.io's other products and services? Like, how does it all fit together?
Well, that's where things get, in my opinion, really, really exciting.
I'm intrigued.
Think of these microwave sounders as like a total game changer for their entire weather intelligence system.
Okay.
Not just like layering this new data on top of existing weather models. They're talking about like a fundamental shift in how we understand and predict the weather.
So it's not just, about a slicker weather app with like a few more bells and whistles. It's about like a potential paradigm shift in how we do forecasting.
Exactly, a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the microwave sounders either. I mean, they're also in the process of launching their own network of radar satellites.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that.
So you start combining both of those data streams, right? You got the radar, it's giving us the where of the precipitation. And then you've got the sounders, they're giving you the what and the how much of the atmosphere.
Okay.
That's what has the potential, at least, to create those like real aha moments in forecasting accuracy.
It all sounds almost, almost too good to be true. How do we know that this isn't all just hype?
Well, yeah.
Are we really on the verge of like some kind of, I don't know, like sci-fi level weather prediction?
It's a fair question. I mean, anytime you have a company that's, really trying to disrupt an entire industry the way tomorrow.io is,
Right.
there are always going to be skeptics. There are always going to be people who say, it can't be done or it's not worth doing, whatever.
For sure.
But here's the thing about tomorrow.io, okay?
Uh,
They're not just like some fly-by-night startup, making these big splashy promises they can't keep.
right.
These guys, they've partnered with MIT Lincoln Laboratory.
Right. They're no joke.
Exactly. I mean, this is a serious research powerhouse.
Mhm.
And they've been working hand in hand with tomorrow.io to develop this microwave sounder technology.
I seem to remember there being some kind of NASA connection as well.
You've done your research.
Well, I try to stay informed.
The sensor technology that tomorrow.io is using, it was actually field tested and proven on NASA's TROPICS mission.
Tropics. I'm going to butcher this.
Stands for time-resolved observations of precipitation structure and storm intensity with a constellation of small sats.
Of course.
But basically,
Catchy.
that mission proved that you can use these types of sensors to track the life cycle of a storm, the intensity, everything, in incredible detail.
Okay, so we're not talking about some untested technology here. This stuff has a pretty impressive resume already.
Exactly. And I think that lends a lot of credibility to tomorrow.io's claims. They're not starting from scratch here. They're building on, literally years of research and development from, frankly, some of the top minds in atmospheric science.
All right, so let's say, hypothetically, tomorrow.io pulls this off. They get this entire constellation of satellites launched. The data starts flowing in, and we're suddenly in this world of like hyper-accurate weather forecasts. What does that world actually look like? Like, who benefits the most from this kind of leap in technology?
I mean, it's exciting to even think about, isn't it? I mean, the implications are just massive.
Kind of mind-blowing.
Imagine any industry that's always been, kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Sure.
Suddenly they've got this much, much clearer picture of what's headed their way.
Yeah, it's not hard to see the impact. What would you say are some of the biggest areas?
One that immediately jumps to mind is aviation.
Okay.
Imagine being able to predict and then avoid, severe turbulence with, like, way more accuracy.
Oh.
We're not just talking about smoother flights either. We're talking about increased fuel efficiency, potentially safer skies, and, of course, let's not forget, a whole lot fewer delays.
Now, those are some benefits I think everyone can get behind. What about some of the other industries out there?
Oh, well, transportation and logistics immediately comes to mind.
Okay, yeah.
Think about it. If you know exactly when and where a major storm is going to hit, that completely changes how you optimize those shipping routes, how you protect valuable cargo,
Yeah.
just basically how you keep those supply chains running as smoothly as possible.
I mean, it's incredible to think about the ripple effects. And it's not all about efficiency and profits either, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a safety element to all of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the safety implications alone are huge, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, think about like disaster preparedness, right? Disaster response. Like if we can better predict, let's say, the path of a hurricane, the intensity, wildfires, even something like flash floods, those ones that kind of seem to come out of nowhere, if we could get a better handle on those,
Yeah.
we could get those really accurate warnings, potentially life-saving warnings, out to communities so much faster.
Right.
We could be talking about, evacuating people sooner, maybe even like positioning resources ahead of time.
I don't know. It's kind of like we're stepping into this uncharted territory.
Yeah.
It's not just about like forecasting the weather anymore, but it's like, how do we manage that information? How do we share it in a way that, that really makes a difference?
It's true, but it's not something to be afraid of either. I mean, the potential benefits here, they're just too great to ignore. It's really up to all of us, you know? Scientists, policymakers, even everyday citizens to make sure that we're asking the right questions.
So where do we go from here?
I think it's about being aware of the technology, understanding what it can do, what it can't do.
And having those conversations.
Exactly. Like, how do we use this knowledge responsibly? How do we make sure it benefits everybody, not just a select few?
Well said. And that, I think, is a perfect place to kind of wrap up our deep dive into the world of tomorrow.io and these, well, frankly, revolutionary microwave sounder satellites. We've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about the science behind these tiny but mighty data collectors, the potential impact they could have on, well, everything from safer skies to, even more resilient communities. But I think the big takeaway here, and it's something we've touched on a few times now, the real question isn't whether this technology works, because it seems like it does. It's how we use this newfound power. How do we make sure those benefits reach everyone? Something to think about, I think, next time you're checking your favorite weather app, or who knows, maybe even next time you get caught in one of those unexpected downpours.